Hello and welcome to the Shattered Sanity how-to guide of the Shannox encounter within the Firelens raid of patch 4.2. My name is Riz and I'll be walking you through step by step as to how we overcame this fight. Okay, so first off, the configuration we chose was 2 tanks, 3 heals and 5 DPS. Now be very aware at the beginning of this fight there is no taunt ability that works on Shannox or his dogs. So tanks, you must obtain threat and solely hold threat. If you die, makes this very, very difficult, as obviously a healer is likely to have second highest threat, or DPS. So basically, the tanks, we have 1 tank on Shannox on our world red marker, and then our Riplin tank, or our off tank, on our green world marker. They're roughly 30-40 yards apart. They're roughly that distance we find to be, rather user friendly. Our 5 DPS, including the melee that we have, are all killing Rage Face. Now the reason for this is Rage Face, as you can see, just jumped on somebody and eats them, or at least noms on their face. We found this very annoying. You need a 30k crit in order to release that person from getting chewed on. So easiest thing to do was to eliminate the problem, which is kill off Rage Face. Does have a side consequence where when the dogs die, Shannox then gets a buff. Now his buff is basically a 30% swing speed increase for each dog that dies. This does persist through phase 2. We'll get more into phase 2 later though. You can see that obviously Riplim has the spear in his mouth. Now this is because Shannox will throw his spear out on the ground for Riplim to go and chase. Now the off tank ideally wants to actually drag Riplim through a crystal trap, or a little sort of hunter trap with a red crystal on it, that we're calling them crystal traps, during the spear throwing phase. Now Shannox throws spear, tank drags dog through trap, therefore stacks clear off Shannox tank and Riplim tank. Now the debuff's got a 30-second cooldown. If the dog is trapped in a crystal trap, obviously that's a long enough time to wear those stacks off. If that doesn't happen, you can slow Riplim down. So you can use your slows. You can't stun him, but definitely slows work. Very effective, and that's why you generally have the sort of distance that we've got there. More on the trap mechanics though. The second trap that drops is an immolation trap. They're very much very good trap to get Rage Face into, simply because it actually gives him a 9% damage increase, and he obviously takes a fairly decent hit of damage as well. Very good for the DPS. If he's focusing on you, he's obviously not eating you, but if he's focusing on you and just doing damage to you, if you can drag him through an immolation trap, very ideal. Does bring him down a lot sooner. If he goes through a crystal trap, very good. Saves the healers a little bit. Don't try and break the crystal that he's in. It's very annoying. It gets him out earlier, and he continues to do damage. If he's in there, it gives the healers reprieve, which is obviously a good thing. Gets the mana back. Once he dies, we had our DPS then split up. So we had 3 DPS on Shannox, 2 DPS on Riplim. Now the reason for this is obviously Shannox has a lot more health than Riplim, so basically it works out fairly equal in regards to equalizing the damage done. What happens is, if Shannox gets below 30% and the dog is still alive, they both enrage and they just nom everyone, and it just becomes an essentially unviable fight. So basically what you want to do is get Shannox to as close to 30% health as possible and kill the dog. What we're trying to do is get Shannox down to around that sort of 32%, and the dog then dies. So that's why we've chosen to split up the DPS. So you can see here, me and the other mage, we're obviously trying to burn down Riplim, and the tank is still managing the throws, the spear throwing phase. Also, this fire thing that you can see here, try and stay in the middle of it, you'll take less damage. Don't stand on the fire. Stand on the fire is bad. Fairly standard thing of WoW. Yeah, so basically that's pretty much it. I'll explain a little bit of phase 2 and the reason why we're trying to obviously kill this dog. What happens in phase 2, guys, is Shannox will go into his enrage mode. Basically, we've killed off his second dog. He then gets pretty annoyed at us for doing that. So what he'll do is he'll actually, when he throws a spear, instead of a dog fetching it because he's got none left, he will give a giant massive debuff to everybody. Now this debuff hurts. It increases your fire damage taken. Everyone takes that fire damage, and it really starts to get quite painful at around sort of 3 stacks. So for those of you in a raid who have the ability to obviously clear stacks, pallies, mages, ice block, bubble, those abilities work. When taking the damage, it only is applied when he throws a spear. So for priests, save a dispersion for usually around the 3rd one. It'll save your healers from having to like massively top you up. Obviously, it is a tank and spank fight when it gets to the 2nd phase. So we popped hero in that phase. You'll see that coming up very shortly. And it's basically a win from there. It's basically how fast you can get that DPS on, into Shannox in that 2nd phase. So you can see here, coming back to the fight that we can see here, that there's a lot more traps starting to come around. Now, the other thing that I probably should mention is the dogs, when they walk over a trap, they will gain the debuff of, or a buff for them, of called Wary. So if they take a trap, they'll gain a Wary debuff, or a buff, sorry, which will basically not allow a trap to activate on them for a remainder, I think it's 30 seconds. So you've got to be very careful that, especially for the off tank, when dragging Rip him around, you make sure you don't drag him through some other trap, potentially immolation trap. Also, try and make sure you don't get Riplim stuck in a trap before the spear is thrown, because once the spear is thrown and he's in a trap, the trap will break automatically. It doesn't matter about the cooldown on how long it takes for him to get freed. Freeze auto, and basically you lose that benefit. Because you'll have then Wary, and you can't get him retrapped, and your stacks continue, and you won't be able to clear your stacks. Therefore, they continue. Healers get a little bit more annoyed at you. That's generally a bad thing. Try not to annoy your healers. So that's pretty much all the mechanics of the fight. Basically, what you're going to see here is the dog is basically just about to die. We're making sure we're monitoring both Shannox and the dog very closely in regards to each other's health pools. Dog, you'll see here, is about to get taken into a trap before Shannox, or before he actually dies. You can see here we're focusing on getting Shannox down a little bit less. Again, that closer you can get to that sort of 30%, the better. It will sort of save your raid, or especially your healers. And that stacking debuff is quite bad. You really don't want to get that stacking debuff beyond 5. What we've sort of noticed is beyond that, is just the damage intake is just insane. So you can see here that Shannox is pretty annoyed at us. So we're popping hero, blowing all our cooldowns that we can. There's the first debuff. So you can see there, he no longer throws it, he just puts it down on the ground, gives everyone a debuff, and picks it up and starts whacking the tank again. Try and still avoid the traps. So you can see where the world marker red is. The tank's obviously veered off, just simply because that way he doesn't get caught in traps at any point throughout the fight. Both of this is still fine. You've got plenty of range, as long as you're sort of sticking around that sort of 40 yards with the distance between the two dogs, well, the dog and obviously Shannox, you'll be fine. So you can see there I hit my bubble, the other mage hit a bubble, and we cleared our stacks. I believe our pally did the same thing. Obviously not our tank, because that would clear his aggro and that would just be bad. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Hopefully there's been enough information in this video for you to successfully walk away and overcome the encounter for yourself. Again, guys, this has been Riz. You're from Shattered Sanity. We're on Amenthal. Hit us up. Feel free to subscribe to our website. Cheers, and thanks for watching.